The rainforest of Tasmania's northwest is a place of quiet resilience. Moss covers ancient trees, waterfalls cut through deep gullies, and the air carries the stillness of a landscape that has remained unchanged for millions of years. It was this wildness that attracted 31-year-old Belgian traveller Céline Cremer. Passionate about photography, travel, and natural beauty, she'd already explored much of Europe, but Tasmania offered something different, a raw, untamed landscape. Céline had been travelling the island for 6 months and was due to board the ferry to Melbourne on the 21st of June 2023. But just 4 days before this, Céline set out to walk the Philosopher Falls track just outside of Waratah, and what should have been a 1-hour return walk instead became the moment she vanished. When she failed to board the Spirit of Tasmania and days passed without contact, her family grew increasingly concerned and reported her missing on the 26th of June. Her car was soon discovered at the trailhead and the search for her began. Police deployed ground crews, helicopters, drones, swift water teams and detection dogs to scour the area, but no trace of her was ever found. The operation was eventually called off after experts advised the conditions were unsurvivable. By mid-July 2023, the official search was suspended, though the case was never closed. In 2024, private investigator Ken Gamble retrieved detailed phone data showing Céline's last recorded movements. The Google Maps data indicated she'd gone well beyond the Philosopher Falls area, following the abandoned water race, and later on in the day she left the water race, passing through thick vegetation to the top of a hill, where her very last GPS points were recorded. Describing the terrain he'd retraced, Gamble said, "I've been to a lot of very rough areas, and I've spent 3 years in the Army Reserve, and I've never seen anything like this." He later returned with drone specialist Daniel Wood, using LiDAR technology to scan beneath the canopy for anomalies, but again, nothing was found. I've held this data for some time, and I've done one search previously to the top of the hill, but as time passes, and given my ability to easily access the terrain, I believe it's important to keep searching for Céline. My hope is that one day Céline can be found and her family offered some measure of closure. In this video, we'll first take a quick look at Céline's GPS data, then we'll head into the forest and perfectly retrace her last known steps. From here, we'll continue to cover more ground around the hill, in effort to relocate Céline and the silence that surrounds her disappearance. Okay, so before we get started retracing Céline's steps out in the wilderness, I think it's pretty important to just run you guys quickly through her cell phone data and point out a few key things just to help build like a foundation, I guess, of her movements leading up to when she disappeared. And there's also a few interesting things that I've kind of spotted in this data that I think are worth talking about. This is what the data looks like in raw form. It shows every time a coordinate was given either by GPS, cell, or Wi-Fi. So you've got cell, Wi-Fi, GPS. Now, as far as I'm aware, the GPS ones are given when Céline was using Google Maps, which she did quite a bit, especially on the roads, traveling around Tassie. And the Wi-Fi and cell ones are given when she was in contact with either of those sources. The cell phone coordinates generally relate to some cell phone tower or somewhere near a town, but the GPS ones are her out and about and show accurately exactly where she was at any given time. So the timing of all this information was set to, I believe, universal time. So it was off by about 10 hours. And just in general, to go through and actually look at all of these coordinates would take years. So I actually got ChatGPT to transcribe it all into an interactive map for me. So this map shows exactly what Céline got up to from the 1st of June up until her disappearance on the 17th of June. She started in the East Coast and then made her way around the state until the 17th of June when she woke up in Rosebery and headed to Waratah. And this is where we'll begin really kind of analysing her movements. Around 12:40, she was in the town. Now, there's evidence here that shows she used a restroom, she went to the service station, and she also visited the Waratah Falls, which are in town. Now, afterwards, she began driving to Philosopher's Falls. So as you can see, at 1:47, Céline began heading southwest along the Carina-Waratah Highway, and she was heading towards Philosopher's Falls. Now, I'm just going to go through and just trace over these pings and show you quickly just how accurate they are, because the thing to point out here is that they were always made when she was directly on the road. And I guess what I'm trying to say here is that the GPS pings were highly accurate in terms of Céline's location. There's no evidence to suggest that they ever swayed from exactly where they should have been. And because of that, I can say that there's a high level of trust involved with these coordinates. I know there's been a little bit of speculation. I've read some reports on other people who've done searches and they doubt the accuracy of the GPS points because they claim that there were too little towers to actually give correct readings, but the evidence is suggesting otherwise. So Céline turns off the highway at 1:55 and starts heading down Butler's Road. Céline drives in, and there's a little bit of a loop here where it drives around the car park. She drove past the entrance to the walk, but then continued around the loop and parked her car where it was found by police several days later. Now, a lot of people wonder why she would park on the opposite side of the loop, and it's as simple as she decked her car out for overnight camping. She had been traveling around the state. She quite often slept in her car. So what she's doing here by parking on the opposite side of the loop is she's creating a barrier from anybody else who might want to use the car park in the following day. So she's arrived at the car park at 1:59. She sits in her car for 20 minutes. I'm assuming probably eating before she goes for the walk. We can see her walking through the loop towards the start of the trail at 2:18. And then at 2:19, her last GPS point is given on the Philosopher's Falls track. It's not until an hour and 10 minutes later at 3:32 on the opposite side of the hill, about a mile from the Philosopher's Falls. So what happened in between 2:19 and 3:32? Well, first of all, Céline's put her phone away. She's no longer using Google Maps. She's on a trail. She puts her maps away and she's walking. She's walking along the Philosopher's Falls walk, which is a very easy to follow walk. It crosses the Arthur River on a small little bridge and then continues to follow alongside the river as you trace the water race. Now, where the turnoff for the falls is, there's some steps, and at the time they weren't signed. So it is possible that Céline continued to walk, not knowing that the falls were down the steps. But I think more likely what happened is Céline had visited the falls, but potentially considered that the walk was a loop. So she came out of the falls and thought, I'll continue following the water race because it looks like the walk continues. Regardless of what her thoughts were, at 3:32, she pulled out her phone again, and this is where she started dotting her GPS points. Now, as you can see, the map that I've got here isn't too clear, so I'm actually going to overlay this onto the list so that you guys can see exactly where Céline was heading in regards to topography. So we can see that this track here is Philosopher's Falls, and this blue line, which contours around the hill, is the old water race that they used to transport the water down to the magnet dam. Now, Céline picks up her phone at 3:32 in this location right here, and I'm just going to overlay that onto this type of map so you can see exactly what's happening. So Céline pulls out her phone. It's quite late in the day, and I'm assuming that she is worried that she's not going to get back to the car in time. What alerted her to this, I'm not sure. She may have just wanted to visit the magnet dam and not realize how late in the day it was getting. Regardless, at this point, she begins to backtrack on the water race, which she came along on. You can see here at 3:46, she's retracing her steps perfectly along the water race. 3:48, she's there. 3:48, 3:49, 3:49, and then this is the last time she's on the water race, and she heads directly south at 3:50. And this is heading into relatively thick vegetation at this point. So Celine's movements head up the hill. We can see here at 4:04, instead of heading south, she decides to turn sharp east and head up the hill. Now she does have some points here where she doesn't do a lot of moving. She may be checking her phone, but regardless, she continues to try and get to the top of the hill, which she does at around 4:14. Now, something interesting to note here at the top of the hill is that Celine's phone gives off a cell ping. So this is a location which darts her back to the township of Waratah. And this is what I mean by the cell phone pings. They're just a random spot somewhere in Waratah which has been given off by a cell tower. Now, why is this important to look at? Well, because after the 17th, Celine's phone never gave off any more GPS coordinates. It only gave off cell tower pings. After that cell tower ping, Celine continued to give GPS points, but there were only 5 left, and she was heading south before what appears on the very last one, she decided to backtrack. That was the last that we know of Celine's movements. Her last GPS point was given at 4:18, and after that, there was only cell points given, similar to the one that I showed you at the very top of the hill. So that raises the question to me, is it possible that there's areas of coverage on that hill that don't allow you to give GPS points, but only cell phone points? Does that mean that based on that, potentially we can tell that Celine never retraced her steps back down the hill, but potentially walked into an area of very low coverage and too little coverage to give GPS points? So in this first search, what I want to do is head into the field and we'll just check how the phone reacts, retracing Celine's steps, and see how Google Maps works in relation to certain points on that hill. So I'm just going to run an initial test here, just pull up Google Maps. There we go, you can see we've got a reading here, which is great. So that confirms that the GPS signal's working. It's good enough to show us where we are. You can see here by spinning that it tells us what direction we're facing. So we'll go and start the walk and see what we can find. We've got some warnings up here now. Got a little plaque here for Celine. Oh, it's so beautiful here with the light and the snow. So I'm about 10 minutes into the walk now, and I'm just coming up to where the track crosses the Arthur River. Now this is the only time on the official walk that you cross a stream, and this is where the water race begins. It's on the other side of the Arthur River, which we're about to cross. Okay, so you've got the steps here. So we're still updating quite well on Google Maps. So this is all very new signage. None of this stuff was here when Céline did her walk and became lost. And I came on my first search here about 6 months after that, and none of this was here. So this is what the water race looks like as a continuation past the steps. As you can see, it's not that different, I guess, to the maintained track. Obviously there's no boardwalk, but it's pretty clear and it's pretty well easy to follow. So once again, I've still got really good coverage of the Google Maps. It is a lot thicker in here now. You know, walking through this in the dark, especially if you just went down there, you would lose the track. Like, it's hard, it would be harder to stay on the track in this section, that's for sure. Ah, well. So Céline went up there. Céline went up this way. That makes sense. She's come back along this track here, but rather than continue on this way, she's gone up there. And the only reason that she would do that is because at this point it appears that you're going away from Philosopher's Falls, but if you go up that way, you head towards Philosopher's Falls. Right, that makes so much sense, because she only turned on her Google Maps was only active from a little bit further up here at 7 Mile Creek. So that's when the panic set in. It was getting dark. She's thinking, I've got to get out of here. Pulled up Google Maps, saw Philosopher's Falls, but she must have, as she was tracing her steps, seen that, oh no, the blue dot is taking me further away, so that's the wrong way. I must have come, or I must need to head that way. And she's seen this little cutout here. This is probably an extension. This is probably a feeder to the water race, I'd say. The old timers would have cut this to channel more water into the main water race. So it appears she was probably a bit more to the right there. Maybe this way. And her mentality, yeah, you can see the SES had been through here and marked this. So she's coming up here. Now hers is the white line there. So she's starting to follow around to the side. So she went under this and then through this way. Up here, I mean, it's so thick. How I guess at this point she's just so committed. Turning back isn't an option. So I want to get to that next point, which is like slightly over to the right. Maybe she was down a bit from here. Let's try to be as accurate as possible here, because knowing that we can retrace her path is pretty important, because it gives us an idea on what she saw, and if for some reason the SES hasn't tracked it perfectly, then we're still covering good ground. See, that to me is saying that she was just down there. She was hugging this big rock wall on her left. So she cut through here. I mean, I can understand why. It's not that tangled. Look. She's following around here. Some sort of... It's almost like a little track, really. So I'm right on that red, on the white line. That's Celine's line. Remember, she's wanting, Celine's goal is to get to, say, Philosopher's Falls. But she's bordered by the rocks that we had, and now this horizontal scrub. So that's stopping her going left, which is what she wanted to do. So she's in here now. Let's go back to the... It's quite thick here, so she darted down here and then took a slight left up. From what I've seen, based on the line that Celine's GPS points gave off and the terrain, I would say they are absolutely accurate, because it's entirely possible to retrace her steps, and it's all kind of the path of least resistance, which is so important, because that's exactly what her goal was. It was to follow the Google Maps where it told her to head, which was this way here. So she's pulling it up, she's checking it, and then she's doing more. So she's turning up here. I mean, all in all, it's not that bad of a tracking spot. Is this where she turned up? Seems likely that she passed up here. So we want to head up the hill, and as you can see, we're getting kind of naturally guided up there. Celine, being late in the afternoon, it would have been more light in these little pockets, guiding her up. Yeah, straight through here.
And it's starting to clear now, starting to open up. This would have been a massive relief for Céline. Gives her options. She's probably stopping anywhere around here and checking her line. Very open right here, and she's walking straight up this hill. As you can see, we're on that white line. She's walking straight up before deciding to turn to the right shortly. You can see it curves around here like this. She's curved around with this line. It's nice and open. She's just following the path of least resistance. She's actually doing a really good job navigating, considering she had this, just that. So she's got Philosopher's Falls there, and now she's cutting across the top. Now she must have thought, oh, I'm out of it. I'm out of all that horrible scrub. You can see here the SES guys have come in from that route the other way. Okay, while we're here, and since I know this hill's pretty good going, we'll follow her trace all the way up, because my theory is that where the dots stopped showing up is where she changed her mind and decided that she wasn't going to push any further into the forest. There we go, that's better. I've cleaned it up now, so there's no extra stuff. So you can see we're right on the line. She cut through here. Then through this way. Makes such perfect sense. Like the route that she took is incredibly good. Like, I'm amazed that she's just picking these lines. It's smart, you know. She's done the right thing. Checking her phone occasionally just for her positioning and the direction she's heading, but then putting her head down, covering distance, most importantly on the path of least resistance. So she swings around here to the left. See, it's really open up here. We're almost at the end here. She came down here where they've put the tape. All right, she's curved down here. She's come to here. She's following her way down here. And she's walking through this thick vegetation. Right, that's good. They've marked the exact spot here. Now Céline continued for a little bit. Right. And then she went in a small amount. She went in like this and stopped. Okay, she stopped, and the last tail of information is that she went back out because of that. But what else can we say here? Google Maps is still working, you know. Google Maps is still fine. The very thing that led her to this position is fine. Unless she dropped her phone here somewhere. I wonder if she dropped her phone. There's no other logical explanation as to why the GPS point stopped unless Céline lost her phone somewhere around here. It's had so much traffic here, like even that stump right there has been pretty worn. The SES have definitely had a good crack at it. Like this vegetation, it's enough. It's enough to stop you from going any further. Now I know that the emergency services have done a gridded metal detect at the site of Céline's last GPS points, but they didn't find anything. So I guess at the moment there's kind of two options. One is that she lost her phone somewhere and it hasn't been found with the metal detectors, or she didn't lose her phone and she just entered one of the dead or grey areas of the GPS relay system. And if that's the case, she would have continued navigating her way to Philosopher Falls, which after that little pinch back there is actually not that bad. I think what we'll do is we'll try to think that she's trying to make progress the best way that she can by going downhill. Now remember, when there was vegetation or rocks, Céline would just follow the path of least resistance, like along here. And she'd be wanting to veer left, but it's not allowing it because of the vegetation. So she's just staying on this kind of course. Now through here might be an opportunity. I'm still following that kind of natural path of least resistance. Now, a lot of people have come through here. You can see that's untouched moss. This here has been gone over. No doubt the SES have been through and done this line, but I'm on my own nose today, so I'm just seeing how things might have worked. You can see thickly wooded on the left. So the natural way for Céline to come through that hill, whether she had her phone or not, is kind of down this way, and she's just trying to weave in and out of this vegetation the exact same way that she did getting up onto the hill. She did a really good job of avoiding the worst of it. You can see quite a bit of activity here as well. See, even coming down, kind of skirted around. Just out of curiosity, if Céline was here, what's she getting out of Google Earth or Google Maps? See, it's still updating for me, and I've got 2 bars of coverage. So I feel like with the data of the cell phone ending up on the hill, we've kind of exhausted the possible logic that we can extract from Céline's movements. Now, whether her phone was left up there and it was lost, or whether she entered into a dark area where there wasn't any coverage, I'm not sure. But I'm going to branch off now and swing down the west side of this hill, because I want to test what the cell phone coverage is like. I want to test what the Google Maps data points are like. I need to know that if there's a possibility that they're weak down that way, then we can kind of assume that Céline must have gone down the west when she was coming off the hill, because so far everywhere else that I've been has been quite favorable to the reception and the GPS data points of Google Maps. Look at that. That's been cut. That's from the old timers. Way back. There's quite a few old tracks in here. You can see that that's been cut with an axe. It's rotten. There's a few more laying about. So I'm just coming down this little gully now from the hill, and I'm going to strike onto this creek, and we'll follow that creek down to the junction and look for any clues around here. Maybe follow that one up, because Céline may have mistook the creek for the one that she crossed on the way in, that had the bridge on it. At the moment, we don't know much, but we can only test certain theories and try to piece together the most probable and likely outcome. But this is an old track through here. Back from the mining days, they must have cleared it. There's every opportunity that if Céline had stumbled on an old track like this, she could have been able to follow it for a while. Somebody has been. So I've come down the hill now. I'm going to check what Google Maps does here. Yeah, looks like we are. We're still zeroing in on it. Crap. Well, that's bad. That's bad news. It means that Céline must have lost her phone. She must have lost her phone that night. Which leaves Céline with a couple of options to get down from the hill without a phone. One is to just go down the hill and see if you can strike the water race which was below it. It covers roughly half the circumference of the hill. Obviously she didn't find that, otherwise she would have been able to walk back out to the car park. So chances are she came down the hill on the western side, which is where I am now. But we have to think that on her walk she experienced several things, right? Before she started using her phone, she experienced a 7-mile creek crossing. So if I was Céline and I came to a creek like this, I might think, well, is this the same creek? Can I follow this up to lead me to the crossing? Or can I follow it down to lead me to the crossing? You know, these are options, but at the same time, it depends what her thought process was. Maybe she heard cars and she didn't want to stay on the creek because she heard the cars. So she said, I'm going to just go for it. I'm going to cut across towards the cars and they're going to get stronger and clearer and I'll get to the road. I've got to get out of here alive. That's probably a very high option, you know. It's hard to think with rationale when you're scared for your life. It's really, really hard. You see, if she made it to this creek, it's like 2 k's, I guess, back to the road. Can you hear that? That's a really clear and loud signal. I'll just keep covering some ground. I'm going to head down the creek. Maybe there's a clue at the junction where this creek runs into 7 Mile Creek. So I must nearly be at the junction of where this creek runs into 7 Mile Creek. Oh, it's like ridiculously thick in here. You just never know when something's going to pop up, you know, like she had possessions, she had shoes, she had a bag, she had keys, a phone, like that stuff's in here somewhere. Could just get one thing. Okay, so this is 7 Mile Creek here. See, I don't know if Céline came down that hill, if she'd walk this far to get back to the water race crossing. It feels like too great of a distance than what it actually is. But I guess this whole walk is like that because it's just filled with bad vegetation. So what do? Give up? I don't know what I'd do. But I feel like there's enough little tracks along the sides here that if she had have got onto one, she could have had hope. And in this type of situation, that's kind of all you've got. This looks like the track crossing here.
This is the location that Céline first pulled out her phone and originally began tracking her GPS points.
Yep, right on it where she crossed.
I began walking my way back along the water race, but there was still a few hours of daylight left, so I thought I'd better do a bit more searching.
Well, I suppose I'll go up again in a different spot for round 2. The more I can fill in the unknown, the better.
My goal for the searches is simple. Record everywhere I go leaving a line and simply colour in the map. Through process of elimination, we can figure out where Céline isn't and continue to search new ground for where she may be. I've been back and tried detecting around her last known GPS point and in line with her suspected trajectory back to the hill. I've tried searching all along the western side of the hill on the assumption she may have tried to retrace her steps back down to the water race but veered off to the left.
Filled in another really good chunk here. Got over 4Ks off track, so.
But ultimately, the area is vast and she may have travelled some distance away from the hill. Céline's friends and family have been busy fundraising and organising a multi-day search for December. They're desperately seeking closure on Céline, and if you're capable and interested in helping to cover more area, whether it be 1, 2 or all of the days, your help would be greatly appreciated. I'll leave the details for that in the video description below, and if you're interested in seeing how the search pans out, I'll do a follow-up video afterwards. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.